It's story time, and I am so excited about the book that I am bringing today. This book is called A Good Night for Mr. Coleman, and it's a book that was written by author Kathy Izzard, the author of The 100-Story Home. Kathy was here with us in Memphis back last September, and we got to hear about her writing The 100-Story Home, and we also got to hear her part of this story of A Good Night for Mr. Coleman. So I hope that you'll enjoy this wonderful story that reminds us always to look for things that we can do that are bigger than ourselves. And it's a shout out today to all the folks in our local community who are doing so much to help so many. A shout out to MIFA, the organization that I am so privileged to be leading as board chair. So happy that they continue to feed seniors and to help families who are in distress in our community. A shout out to Mid-South Food Bank for continuing to feed so many people who are in need of food in these days. A shout out to Room in the Inn and Manna House for their continued work with those among us who are without shelter. And a shout out to both Calvary Church and Grace St. Luke's Church for the feeding ministries that they are continuing to help bring food to our neighbors who are not able to find enough to eat these days. Blessings to all of you, and I hope you enjoy Kathy's wonderful story, A Good Night for Mr. Coleman. Today I wake up with a smile because it's my favorite day of the month, Soup Kitchen Sunday. I get to help make tons of sandwiches and loads of soup for people who are hungry. Mom says we work at the soup kitchen to remind us to believe in something bigger than ourselves. I am not sure what that means. I just know I like helping people and putting on a special purple apron. When we are at the soup kitchen, we call everyone we serve a neighbor so that we can remember to be as nice to them as we are to the people who actually live next door to us, like Mrs. Cook. I call Mrs. Cook Gigi, and she has awesome red glasses with hair that looks like she is wearing clouds. Gigi paints every day in her art studio, and she always asks me to paint with her. I mostly just watch because I'm afraid I am not a very good artist. Gigi always shakes her silver hair and tells me, "You can do anything, Grace, really anything." My name is Grace. The neighbors in the soup kitchen don't have a home like me or Gigi, so they don't have a kitchen or a bathroom. They come to the soup kitchen every day to eat lunch and even to take a shower. But there are no bathtubs and no toys. Mom says serve everyone with a smile, and that is easy to do because helping makes me feel all shiny inside, especially when I help my friend, Mr. Coleman. Mr. Coleman gets all his letters delivered to the soup kitchen since he doesn't have a mailbox. When I hand Mr. Coleman his mail, he says, "Why, thank you, Miss Grace." I ask him why he doesn't have a home, and he says, because he lost his job. I ask him why, and he says, it's complicated. I ask Mom if Mr. Coleman can move in with us since he doesn't have a home, but she says no. I ask why not, and she says, it's complicated. Grown-ups always say it's complicated when they don't have the words to explain stuff. But I still wish they would try. I always thought Mr. Coleman and all the neighbors slept upstairs at the soup kitchen. And so I asked my mom if she would take me to see Mr. Coleman's bed. She looks at me funny and she says, "Nobody sleeps here." "But where is Mr. Coleman's bed?" I ask her. Mom doesn't answer. If he doesn't have his own bed, how does Mr. Coleman ever have a good night? I thought. It scares me to think about Mr. Coleman alone in the dark with no bed and no pillow and no bear like the one I hug at night. He doesn't even have a dog like my Rocky to protect him. Can't we do something about it? I ask my mom. It's complicated, she says. But I keep hearing a little voice that won't go away, telling me to do something about it. So I decided to trust the whisper. The next day after school, I set up a lemonade stand with a sign that said, "Let's build beds, lemonade $1. If I sell lemonade every day for a whole year, that would have to be enough to get Mr. Coleman his own bed." I tell Gigi about Mr. Coleman and that he doesn't have a bed or a pillow or a bear or a Rocky. Gigi says, "We must do something about that, Grace." Then Gigi shows me a newspaper article where some grown-ups are trying to build a whole apartment building for neighbors who don't have a place to live like Mr. Coleman. So I keep selling lemonade and Mom helps me and sends me the money, and so I can send the money that I make to the grown-ups who are building apartments for neighbors who don't have homes. And Gigi gives the money too. I don't know how much, but Mom says it was a lot. And guess what? All those dollars added up. And the grown-ups really did build a building so that Mr. Coleman and lots of neighbors would have a bed and a pillow in their own homes. I thought Mr. Coleman still needed one more thing to have a good night. So I give him my bear, too. Now Mr. Coleman is no longer a soup kitchen neighbor. He's just a neighbor like Gigi. And he has his own mailbox, so I can send him letters and pictures. Because I finally tried painting with Gigi, and it turns out I am a pretty good artist. Mr. Coleman even hung one of my paintings on his new bedroom wall. Sometimes things aren't complicated. It turns out you can do anything, really anything, when you believe in yourself and something